As we continue our efforts to bring viewers a sense of what's going on across America and hear from voices not just in Washington, we traveled to Richmond, Virginia to talk to a group at the old City Hall about what was on their mind politically after 1 month of the Trump administration. Word or phrase that describes our country right now?
Turmoil. Right now, if you lose, you don't lose. You just fight, fight, fight. You fuss, fuss, fuss. Obstruction is now a technique. Failure is something to promote if it's on the other guys.
Gina, what about you?
I feel like everybody is sitting on pins and needles, so it's sort of like waiting. I feel like we have to be hopeful.
Charles, what about you?
Volatility, turmoil, and chaos.
Barb, what about you?
Frustration. A lot of people are afraid too.
You say a lot of people are afraid.
Yeah, they don't know what's going to happen.
Aaron, what about you?
I think the words change. We've got a president who very clearly does things in a different way and is surrounded by a team that does things in a different way. They're going about keeping their campaign promises, but they communicate them in a different way.
Angry. I think a lot of people are angry. A lot of people base their vote on their anger, and now a lot of people are fighting back with their anger against the vote for Donald Trump, so my anger.
I would say scary, because people really don't know what to expect. There are promises that are made, and they don't know if they're going to be kept, or what is going to happen if they're kept. So I think people are just kind of afraid, well, scared and afraid right now.
I'd say a mass confusion. I think they promised us that they're going to drain the swamp, but instead, I think we're getting more of the same.
George, what's impressed you the most about the president?
Now that he won.
Since becoming president, what's impressed you the most about him?
The energy that the man has. He seems relentless. I mean, day after day, it's always something. And he has a way, yes, and I don't like all the comments he makes on Twitter, but you can't, he's always the news, 24/7. He absorbs all the air out of the room.
Barb, if you had to give the president advice, what advice would you give him?
To think before you speak, or Twitter.
Sheila, when the president wakes up every morning, what do you think he's thinking about?
Himself. He reminds me of, and probably some of the women here remember this type from middle school on, girls who did nothing but think about their wedding. They didn't even have a groom in mind, but they were planning that. And all of the energy went into that wedding, to the pomp, to the ceremony, and actually being married and making it work was so far to the back that they just kept coming back to wanting to redo the wedding, wanting to entertain lavishly, and that type of thing. They still weren't thinking about being married. And he's not thinking about being president.
For those of you who voted for Donald Trump, what was the promise of his presidency? Charles?
Well, it is his drain the swamp, in which I took to mean the control of the regulations that have abounded under the previous administration.
David, what gives you hope?
Hope is we will change presidents somewhere down the line. I like some of what Trump wants to do, and some of what he wants to do scares me to death.
What do you like?
Immigration.
What about it?
Let's secure the borders. Let's rein in all of the people coming into the country without documents. The simple fact that they're here makes them a criminal. And I would ask people, do you lock your doors at night? Or do you just open a door and say, here's a sign, come on in, take my food, watch my TV, oh yeah, I'll buy you dinner, here's some groceries. Nobody in this country does that. We lock our doors for various reasons. We need to lock the border. Let the people come in legally. You know, the country is built on immigrants, but do it properly.
Gina, what's the #1 issue for you?
Well, as a businessman, I was hoping that he would be able to control the finances better. I watched The Apprentice. It was one of my favorite shows, believe it or not. And I liked him on the show. I liked his position, his energy. I didn't vote for him, but I just felt like he should come from a financial background, and that's what we need.
I'd like everybody to listen to this and see if you think this is going to happen. Here's what the president has promised for the replacement of Obamacare. He says his replacement will take care of everybody. There will be better health care for more people at lesser cost. Who here thinks that that's possible in politics today, a plan that encompasses all of that? So you got some optimism there about that. Why do you think that, Charles?
Some of Obamacare people really like. I don't think it's at this point it's going to work to completely junk it. It's going to have to be fixed. But whatever we come up with, it's not going to work unless we come up with some way to pay for it.
We've got to remember that thankfully he's a president, not a dictator, so he's going to have to deal with Congress. He's also going to have to deal with the insurance companies. They're going to obviously want to have a big say in that. So just for him to spout, oh, it's going to be the best, the greatest, the most wonderful thing possible is just not realistic, in my opinion.
That's right.
Does the press give Donald Trump a fair shake?
Not always. But some of it's his fault, I think.
I don't think the media is too hard on Trump. When you report what he says, and then he calls it fake news, you kind of have to wonder where he's coming from.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the news to asking the hard questions. And to me, though, they focus too much on the negative stuff. I know the other night, the only channel, which was Fox, that was broadcasting when he had all the coal workers in there, when he said, they were the only channel that broadcasted and reported that night. That was something good, because Senator Manchin was there, who's a Democrat. But they seemed to focus on, yes, he does missteps, but the man's only been in office for a little over 30 days. He's going to be there for 4 years. I'm giving him 4 years to make a difference.
Does anyone have a member of their family here that will be directly affected by a policy that Donald Trump has talked about?
I am very much looking forward to the repealing and replacing of Obamacare because it directly affects my mother. The current system raised her rates in the middle of chemotherapy $1,300 a month. It's absolutely insane. And to say that that policy is helping people, it needs to go, it needs to be replaced.
And you feel like the replacement will be better than what she's got now?
It has to be.
The final question. Gina, I'll start with you. So it's 20 years from now, and you're talking to the next generation, and you're telling them what happened in the Trump years and how it ended. What story do you tell them?
And I think the expectation is going to be high, has been high from the beginning, and I think it's going to dwindle down. I don't think there's going to be much changes to Obamacare. I don't think there's going to be changes to the economy that much.
I think we'd have to tell future generations that unless President Trump can turn things around, that we dropped the ball. I mean, unelected bureaucrats in these agencies are getting more and more power over our lives every single day. And I don't see any change on the horizon for that. Maybe I'm being pessimistic that maybe President Trump can make some changes.
That story is going to sound like the citizenry dropped the ball. Donald Trump, good, bad, or indifferent, it's not the problem. The problem is there are people that like Donald Trump. There are people that hate Donald Trump. There's a larger group of people that did not vote. And until we get a consensus from the population about who's being elected to represent all the people, then you're going to get this minority rule, which is what we have. I would tell the future, don't ever let that happen again. Turn the idiot box off, turn Fox News off, and NBC and CBS, turn them all off, and start talking to your family, start talking to your friends, start talking to your neighbors, because we are the government.
Sinu?
After the election, my two daughters were so despondent. They said, "Daddy, how did this happen?" And poll after poll predicted Hillary Clinton would have won. So they were surprised that it was reversed. And I explained to them, sweetheart, if you look at the overall history of the US, we have survived many elections. And this is another election that will survive and will become stronger because of this.
All right, thanks to all of you. We'll be back here in 20 years to talk to all of you. If you want to watch more from our focus group, it is available on our website, facethenation.com.